Good afternoon, Deputy Foreign Minister of Azerbaijan, Mr. Elnur Mamadov. How are you today, sir?
Good afternoon, very well, and you?
It's an honor and a privilege to be able to sit with you today to have this little conversation. And if you don't mind, I would like to start with the first question.
Sure.
So this year, Indonesia and Azerbaijan celebrate 30 years of diplomatic relations. So what are some of the diplomatic achievements that our relationship has produced these past few decades?
Indeed, you are absolutely right. This year, on September 24th, we marked the 30th year anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations. We established the relations in the first years of Azerbaijan, restoring its independence from the Soviet Union. And over the last 30 years, we've had developed what I believe to be the most important thing is mutual trust. We had exchange of congratulatory letters between the heads of states, Excellency President Aliyev and Excellency President Joko Widodo. They exchanged the letters. We also had the exchange of letters between the foreign ministers of two states. So in September, we also held certain events to celebrate this important milestone, both in Jakarta and Baku. One of the most important things, something that we value a lot, is the fact that Indonesia has been consistent in extending its unequivocal support to the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan from the very early days when Armenia invaded and occupied almost 20% of internationally recognized territories of Azerbaijan and ethnically cleansed more than 1 million Azerbaijanis from those territories. Indonesia, both in a bilateral format as well as in regional and multilateral platforms, supported the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan, and we've been always thankful to Indonesia for that political stance. We've enjoyed a trustworthy relations within the United Nations, supporting each other's various initiatives that we've been taking throughout these years. We've also cooperated very productively within the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. We both, as predominantly Muslim countries, Indonesia being the largest Muslim country in the world, are members of Ummah. And as members of Ummah, we've supported each other and other Ummah members within the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The other important platform of which Indonesia was a founding father in 1955 with the adoption of Bandung principles was a Nonaligned Movement, which Azerbaijan has been chairing since 2019. And I will provide more details of our stewardship and presidency over now as we speak. So I think overall it's an important milestone to celebrate.
So I'd like to touch a little bit on the non-aligned movement later, but first I would like to say that in commemoration of 30 years of diplomatic relations, what do you think we can leverage in order to enhance and strengthen our bilateral relations?
I think there are a few avenues for enhancing cooperation. Of course, on a political level, as I said, we've enjoyed trustworthy relations, but of course that also needs to be expanded to other areas. We have signed 15 agreements by now, bilateral agreements in various fields, such as education, such as culture, such as the provision of public services, and the interactions between the defense ministers and other line agencies within the government. So it's not only the level of cooperation between the foreign ministries, we're also talking about very close cooperation across the board, across the government, among the line agencies. So we continue with those initiatives. There are more than 20 agreements currently in the pipeline. And by the way, earlier today I've held the third political consultations, or how the policy planning dialogue, how it is called in Indonesia, with my counterpart at the Minister of Foreign Affairs, where we've discussed all the issues on our bilateral agenda, as well as developments in the region, both in South Caucasus as well as in Southeast Asia. And as a result, we've identified the issues that need to be addressed in the short to mid-term, and we'll of course work on them closely as a follow-up to this round of political consultations. So of course there is always room for improvement, and we will work on that for sure.
I'd like to touch a little bit on the trade between Indonesia and Azerbaijan. So in 2021, the trade between the two countries was valued at 174 million US dollars. What is Azerbaijan's biggest export to Indonesia, and will there be talks about expanding to trade-off services in the near future?
Well, to start off, the very good news from the beginning is the fact that the trade turnover has tripled from last year. So as you correctly mentioned, in 2021, we were in the range of 160, 170 million. Now we're talking about more than $500 million. So we have reached the level of 550 million as we were reconciling the numbers today during the political consultations. It is indeed an impressive hike in the trade turnover. The other thing is the structure of trade turnover. It is still mostly the export of crude oil and petrochemicals from Azerbaijan, mostly through the state oil company of Azerbaijan to the state oil company here in Indonesia, so mostly to Pertamina is a state oil company. And last year, the Minister of Energy of Azerbaijan and the Minister of Energy and Natural Mineral Resources of Indonesia signed a memorandum of understanding, which we believe will expand further and deepen our ties in in cooperation in the energy sector. What we believe we should be doing now in terms of expanding horizon, it's mostly diversifying away from the export of crude oil, from the enhanced cooperation in the traditional fossil fuel energy to renewable energy and to non-oil and gas, to non-energy sector in general. And that is part of our challenge. Definitely we need to recognize the challenges that we're facing. The first challenge is geography and distance between the two countries, despite the very close political ties when it comes to economic relations. We're talking about the cost and efficiency kinds of categories and principles that need to be taken into account. So when investors look at it, when the governments look at it, they start calculating the cost. So it has to be feasible economically in order for investors as well as for businesses to expand the investment and also to expand the trade turnover. So that is, I would say, the most pressing issue on our agenda, how we diversify away and how we expand our non-energy sector cooperation. But I believe there are ways, and today earlier we've discussed with my counterpart how we could increase the cooperation in the non-energy sector. But there are certain projects that we have in mind, and definitely the details will need to be ironed out. But it's not only, by the way, it's not only the fact that the energy prices have jumped, but also the volume of trade has increased. So we're selling much more to Indonesia now than we used to.
So jumping off of that point, considering that in 2022, the trade between Indonesia and Azerbaijan is valued at almost $500 million US dollars. Obviously, Indonesia depends a lot on Azerbaijan. How does Azerbaijan see Indonesia as a trade partner?
A very valuable partner. As I said, it's especially in this region. If you look at the number, it's quite an impressive number. Of course, in terms of import, we import palm oil. We import some equipment and electronic devices and some rigs from Indonesia. But as I said, what we need to do definitely in short to mid-term is to diversify and enrich, in some sense, the structure of the trade turnover and the export and import. And that was one of the points that we addressed earlier today. But it doesn't have sort of an easy solution. As I said, there are challenges. The shipping costs, there's certain commercial terms that need to be agreed. But overall, as governments, our job is to create those opportunities for businesses to talk to and business communities to see each other, to communicate, and then put their heads together to find solutions. In terms of Azerbaijan, in terms of what Azerbaijan could do, of course, there are conditions and incentives that we propose to both foreign investors and our trade partners in Azerbaijan. There have been a lot of reforms in terms of how we improve and enhance the structure of our own economy in terms of diversification.
So I'd like to backtrack a little bit and touch on the non-aligned movement. It's been 3 years since Azerbaijan chaired the non-aligned movement. What could you tell us about Azerbaijani chairmanship, and how can this movement affect the relationship between Indonesia and Azerbaijan?
So as I mentioned earlier, Indonesia is one of the founding fathers of the non-aligned movement. The Africa-Asian conference that was convened here in Bandung, where the famous Bandung Principles were adopted back in 1955. They led the basis for the creation of this movement in 1961. Although technically it's not an organization, it's a movement, but it's the largest after the United Nations, combining 120 member states. And Azerbaijan joined the NAM in 2011. And 8 years after that, we were very proud to take the chairmanship and presidency in that movement. One of the challenges that we faced in the very early days is that our chairmanship unfortunately coincided with the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. And despite the fact that we had sort of quite a different agenda, the priorities for our presidency and chairmanship in a non-aligned movement, because of the global health crisis, we had to adjust to this newly emerging situation. So we've changed our focus and priorities towards mostly addressing the growing challenges and the pressing issues of the global health crisis. At our initiative, we've been able to galvanize support and secure the necessary votes for the adoption of resolution on fair and equitable treatment and fair and equitable access, affordable access to all the countries to vaccines. That was sort of one stream, one dimension of our initiatives within NAM, which was to react to the evolving situation of the global health crisis. The other thing that we did was, and just to conclude on that, next year in March we are now holding the post-COVID session again, the NAM contact group high level, this time physically in Baku. And earlier today we've handed over the original copy of the invitation letter by our president, the president of Indonesia, in order for him to attend the event. And that would be on the post-COVID recovery from the pandemic, how we recover, especially in light of the fact that now we also have a food crisis and energy crisis in light of this war in Ukraine. The other initiatives that we took was to bring more institutionalization to this movement, because it's not an organization. We created 2 networks. One is parliamentary network to bring together the parliamentarians and speakers of parliaments of non-member states. That was inaugurated in Madrid in Spain in November last year. Then we also established and inaugurated the youth network, which we then transformed into the youth organization of NAM, which is to give a platform and empower youth in the NAM member states, which both initiatives were very much welcomed by the NAM member states. And of course, as a result of this stewardship, and as we believe to be the successful chairmanship, our chairmanship was extended for another year with the unanimous vote of all the NAM member states, and we will be chairing this movement till the end of next year. And of course, as part of that, answering sort of the second part of your question, this also provided an ample opportunity for us to interact with Indonesia, first as a non-member, as a founding father. Of course, that was a new platform in addition to our bilateral agenda. Second, Indonesia successfully chaired the G20 this year, as you know. And of course, Azerbaijan being the chair of NAM, Indonesia chairing G20, we received a number of invitations from Indonesia to attend the events that were being organized on the sidelines of the main summit that took place in Bali.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mamadov, for your insights today. It's been an honor and again a pleasure.
Thank you.
So
Honor
much.
is mine, and thank you for having me.